Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, regular YouTube live stream where we welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, we've just gone past 2 p.m. on Friday, August the 30th, frog in the throat. We've got the majority of the team news in, I believe, ahead of game week 3, except for Aston Villa, because Unai Emery is normally last. Obviously, transfer window is open, so if you're listening or watching this back later in the day, please bear in mind the time of this recording. Got nothing particularly to announce to start with, so I'll get straight into the questions. Bad Company says, hi James, I think it must be over a year ago now I asked you to name your combined Arsenal and Tottenham 11. And it was fairly even. Was it? Was I on drugs? It says, how many Spurs would get into Arsenal's first team today? Oh, okay, so that's a slightly different question anyway to a combined 11. Like, how many Tottenham players would actually get into Arsenal's 11 as it stands? Not many. Maybe Destiny Udogie at left back. Probably still Heung-min Son on the left wing, maybe, and I'd imagine that would be it. If you're asking for an actual combined 11, that's different to how many get into. Combined 11 would be closer, because there's things I'd want, like probably Saliba and Romero together, but they're both the right-sided centre backs. For example, like White and Porro would come down to like your personal preference of like what you'd want to do in a team. One is outstanding defensively, one is obviously outstanding offensively. Where would you play Declan Rice? Saka would obviously play on the right. That would be completely unquestionable. So there'd be a few that are close, particularly defensively, I feel. The majority of the attacking players, bar probably left wing, would be Arsenal players, I would imagine. Jim Pro 100 says, can you give any insight on what to expect from Manor Solomon after joining Leeds on loan? If fit, should he be one of the standout players in the league? Not a big fan of Manor Solomon, sorry. Just think I literally made a comment on one of our Patreon podcasts after we played at Hearts in pre-season. I don't know what he offers. He's quick. I don't think he's got the technical ability to truly beat a man. It's worth saying he's obviously come back from really long injury layoffs. It'd probably take a while to get up to speed. His technique is okay, but not outstanding. Should he do well at that level? Yes, he should. Is he good enough for Tottenham? No, it was a clear opportunistic signing to get him in on a free transfer from a club that was getting stripped at the time, unfortunately, in Shakhtar Donetsk. And Tottenham knew that there would be money to be made on it. So like not top level. Should he do well at the Championship? Yes. It possibly speaks volumes though that he's available and he's gone with respect to Leeds, who are obviously a huge football club, but in the Championship, why none of the promoted Premier League clubs looked at him, for example, or clubs near the foot of the table. So it will take a while. You might find that you get into the second half of the season, he's built up a bit of momentum and you might see the best of him. I think it will take a while. Chris Hermitage says, hi James, I have Hall, Quansah and Barco, so I need to make a defensive move. Which teams would you target for this week? Imagine I will wildcard week 4, so I'm thinking Quansah, thanks. Hall might play. Quansah's very unlikely. Barco is definitely unlikely. You could always flip something there like Quansah to Nedeljkovic at Villa. If you're going to wildcard in 4 anyway, Nedeljkovic is almost certainly going to play at right back as long as Villa don't buy someone today. But I mean, at this stage anyway, even if they did, it wouldn't be registered in time for tomorrow. So he's going to play at right back tomorrow. That seems fairly certain. And that will stop you like hemorrhaging the money on Quansah because he's already gone down to 4.3. There's every chance that'll be 4.2. Mind you, if you're going to wildcard, presumably activate Saturday night. So that's actually probably not a problem. But there's a different one for you. In terms of just the 1 week only, I'd arguably go someone like Ethan Pinnock at Brentford, maybe. I'm not going to predict a lot of clean sheets this weekend. That may be one for Brentford. Konstantinos says, hi James, give us your quick take on Brighton. Is Mitoma going to be a better FPL asset once his Stupinan comes back? Well, you've got the new signing, it's Kadioglu. Can obviously compete. He can play on both sides, but he may be the one that plays at left back rather than his Stupinan. We're not sure at this stage. I don't think either have a huge impact on what Mitoma will be. I think Mitoma started the season well, hasn't he? Goal and assist in the first 2 games. Difficult game, obviously, this weekend. I think if he has a good weekend, he'll be very popular going into game week 4 and 5. But I think any Brighton player that does well this weekend will be very popular going into game week 4 and 5 with the Ipswich and Nottingham Forest games. So yeah, Karim Mitoma not far from my thoughts. And we said in pre-season that we thought because of the pricing of Minter and João Pedro, he'd largely get overlooked and yet would probably prove really good value. I often referred back to last season at 6.5. He was like a shoo-in for me at the start, but they had great fixtures, whereas this time they didn't. Someone like Mitoma right on my radar for roundabouts game week 12. I may not be looking at him before then, I suspect. Danelia says, hi James, Spurs versus Blackburn at home, 94-95. What was the score? Bonus points for goal scorers and assisters. So we won 3-1. It was in February, I believe. Anyone who watched FPL Juice the other night knows probably what's going on right now. Klinsmann scored the first. There's maybe a Nick Barmby assist. Nick Barmby got the third. Second goal, a deflected goal from Darren Anderton. Long range strike. Couldn't tell you who assisted that. Probably Anderson crossed for Barmby's third. I think Tim Sherwood scored Blackburn's goal from memory, but I might have that bit wrong. Prem Panica says, hey James, should I transfer Jacob Murphy to Rodgers as the 8th attacker in case Solanke doesn't play this game week, or roll the transfer for the international break? Well, Anja said that Dominic Solanke will not play this week. And if Dominic Solanke's price has been locked, which many of us would suspect, it's not going to be locked beyond this weekend, I don't think. And that's going to start to go down in value, I should imagine. And then it's Arsenal next. And not a certainty that he'd be back in the team. He probably would be if he's fit, particularly with Richarlison. This guy, man. He's injured again, when actually would have a chance of playing, and he would have started this weekend. I don't know whether to feel bad for him or just like, it's just over and over again. It's like every 2 or 3 weeks, injured again, he's back, he's injured again. I'd be looking to move Solanke, but I mean the Murphy to Rodgers move is absolutely fine. I can't give you any reason not to do that, and I can see the question underneath from JP. Hi mate, what would you do with Murphy with 0 in the bank? Buy Morgan Rodgers if you haven't got, or alternatively if you do, I'd just play him. I think Jacob Murphy will still start this weekend. That's based on what Eddie Howe did in the fixture last year, which was a real concentrated effort to try and stop Tottenham playing. And I think Murphy has the tactical discipline that will probably be used on Sunday. So I think he probably starts again. And actually, he scored twice against us in the 6-1 a couple of years ago. I realise that's probably not going to be the score at the weekend. So Murphy to Rodgers, or if you've already got Rodgers, arguably just play him, mate. Madueke would be $1 million more, wouldn't it? Or mind you, I'd put him in he is in the Wildcard at the moment. I probably won't keep him. That was at 6.4. It's $1 million more, isn't it? Hasselbank's win says, hi James, how important is it for Chelsea to get Victor Osimhen, and thoughts on the second half performance at Wolves? The attack looks like it has serious potential. So Osimhen, as far as I'm aware at this moment, is going to Saudi Arabia, as is Ivan Toney. I said in our Patreon podcast this morning that I said I thought Toney would be a Chelsea player by the end of the day. And by the time I think before even we'd finished, the news broke that a deal had been agreed with a club in Saudi. So it sounds like they're both going now. In which case, at this stage, I don't think Chelsea buy a 9. How important is it? I think Nicholas Jackson is a really good team player who may well benefit from his second season. So Didier Drogba didn't particularly cut up trees in his first season with Chelsea. That's not to compare the two players. I'm just saying, second season, we may see improvements from him, and I do think he's a good team player, and they're not short of attacking talent. So to have someone that can help get the best out of the others behind, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. So is it an essential? No. They'd probably be a little bit light, despite how many players they've got. If Jackson got injured, I think there'd be a reluctance to use Mark Gu regularly. Chelsea obviously trying to move out Armando Broja, and I think he may have an injury at the moment in any case. But Felix, Palmer, and Nkunku could all play through the middle, so I don't think it's desperate. In terms of the second half performance at Wolves, yeah, the attack did look very dangerous, but I didn't watch the game. I was watching Bournemouth against Newcastle, so I've seen very little of it. I've obviously seen the highlights, but don't think it would be fair to give you a true analysis of that. Thanks for that, Zach Hurst. Just if you're going to respond to someone in a chat, my friend, if you can just drop them a tag, so I just know to skip your comment. That's all, mate. But thank you. Owen Wilson says, "Will the Spurs lineup be the same as versus Everton? I feel that game could have loads of goals." So I'm really disappointed. I was quite hopeful that Solanke was going to make it. That seemed to be the noises yesterday that there was a good chance he was going to make it. And just obviously said today no. And Richarlison's out as well. It's kind of put a dagger to some of my optimism, because judging by that game last year, Son through the middle against them is not the solution. But that's what he's going to do. I'm fairly confident of that. So I guess there's just a couple of calls here. One is drop Odegaard and put Werner in, and just keep the system the same, or play Odegaard, so it could be the same. Or play neither, move Johnson to the left, move Kulusevski to the right, and bring Salah back in. And I think that would be the obvious solution that people will expect, but I'm probably of the opinion right now that it will probably be the same team. And Odegaard may very well start again. I think that's a real tough game for him to go into. First 45, really good last week. Newcastle away, playing against Livramento would be a very different challenge. Under the circumstance now, I would probably prefer Ange to go Johnson left, Kulusevski right, I think, and bring Salah back into the team. I have an inkling he's not going to do that, though. And I think there's a strong possibility that, it will be the same team. Adam Cooper says, "Hi James, do you have a plan to get Haaland in game week 7? If so, how?" With great difficulty. I'll tell you the crux of the plan, and I did use FPL team last night to plan ahead for a few weeks based on a couple of different wildcard drafts, with the potential in mind to look at buying Haaland back in either game week 7 or game week 9. Some just don't work for game week 7. But the principal idea here would be that I'm picking a team that is going to hold me for a while, with the intention to buy an Arsenal player in game week 6 to take me up to 3, because I intend to start with 2. And then I should hopefully still have 3 free transfers for game week 7 and manipulate it from there. But as I'll have Palmer and I'll probably have Saka, I don't see me reducing a midfield player at that point. So the honest answer to this is, it's probably for me, for Haaland, is more likely to be game week 8 or game week 9. That's how it stands at the moment. And you know what? With Palmer at home to Forest and Saka at home to Southampton, I'm probably happy to take it on in game week 7. So it might be me waiting, or it might be me not doing it at all. But it might be that it's more likely for me, like Palmer goes to Liverpool in 8, downgrade then, and then either make the move there, where by that point I might even have 4 free transfers. That's easier said than done. But that's part of the thinking here in terms of wild card, stretch a team that's going to last for a few weeks and be able to kind of manipulate like a mini wild card back around that period where I know a lot of others are going to wild card. But it could be for me, game week 7, I'm possibly just going to take him on, quite possibly, and then look at 8 or 9. And if I go beyond 7, I might not, because also when Palmer's difficult run restarts in game week 8, it might be that I want to look into, if Heung-min Son shows good form in the next few weeks, it might be there, or I might decide that I'm just going to go Palmer to Foden or Kevin De Bruyne instead. So there's no guarantee, but in principle there's ways of doing it. I think game week 7 will be tough for me, and I will probably take it on. That's how it stands at the moment. Yvette says, got Nkunku and no money. Don't need a player this week. If left transfer to next week, would have to transfer out Isak as well to do anything different from what I can do this week. What to do, Tar? I think it's a sell. I think if you don't have Morgan Rogers, I would just drop that all the way down and hold, and then come back and make a decision on which player to go back to the next week. I think that would be the right solution. Or alternatively, if you do have anything in the bank, obviously you could consider Leon Bailey. I don't mind Mbeumo a little bit more if you've got some more money in the bank, or you could even just punt Eberechi. I think it's a sell. My instinct is he won't start on Sunday, and unless he comes on and scores, that value is just going to keep going one way. And I think it's owners are really unlucky. 100%, if I was not bench boosting in game week 1, I would have started with him. and I'd have been really hopeful that he played in game week 2, so I'd have been rolling. Well, I wouldn't have sold him, and I'd be dealing with a problem now. I'd be stuck with a really, really similar problem. If that were me, and I'd have run that route, I don't think I would have started with Rodgers, and I think that's where I'd be going. I'd drop it down to Rodgers, and no, that's fine for the next few weeks. If I need to play him, that's okay. You've also said you don't need to, so what a great first sub this week. And assess, because I think that's going to keep hemorrhaging value. In any case, it's clearly a problem. We know they're trying to add today. It looks like they might not. Although I know the Jadon Sancho rumours keep going round. God knows what Eberechi thinks of that. But they've obviously added Neto. João Felix is in there. Palmer was superb, essentially, in Nkunku's role last week. They bought Dewsbury Hall. They played Fernandes higher against Man City. It's not like suddenly a light switch is going to go off and he's now going to play every week. What changes it? It might be Jackson getting injured and then suddenly, oh my God, I want him back. Like, it could be like that. But I think it's one of them where you just keep pushing him. Oh, the fixtures are right. The fixtures are right. I don't think he's going to play. Listen, he could come on and score in the last half hour. No doubt. I've got no doubt about this fella in front of goal. But it looks like there's too many cooks there at the moment. JP says, your favourite differentials for the upcoming 3 to 4 weeks? Although I don't know how much of a differential that is within the community, but throw Leon Bailey into there. Nedeljkovic as a 4.0, who I might not be going with, by the way, but that really short term, I think that's pretty good, because Matty Cash is anticipated to be out for a month. A month from now is essentially the weekend of game week 6, so you're saying next 3 to 4. Some good fixtures in there. I think that's pretty good as an enabler. Differentials. Jota still fall into that line. Andy Robertson, a name potentially to throw into there. Eze, people keep selling him, which might be one by the time game week 4 comes around. Mateta, there's a rogue one for you. Muniz, Smith Rowe, if you're counting those sort of players, differentials. Really rogue one for you. I just don't recommend Ilman and Dye. I don't recommend that. Burton Diaz, still okay. Sammy Schmodix for a couple of weeks. Not terrible either. There's a load for you there, mate. Tiffany FPL Firefly says, is Nicholas Jackson a decent replacement for Solanke given the fixtures, or go for a safer monies? Maybe wildcard game week 6 or 8. That's interesting, because if you break in at 6, that's not so attractive for Jackson. If you're wildcard in 8, it's perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I don't mind a Jackson shout. I think that's absolutely fine, Tiffany. He's not coming in for me. That's because of other players that I want. Would I pick Jackson over Muniz if that's a straight choice? Yeah, probably would. FPL Gas Dan says, hello mate, currently locked in with 14 or 15 on my wildcard. Can't decide between a fun punt of Rico Lewis or the safety of Pinnock. Any thoughts? Have a great weekend. Well, the first thing to say on that, Dan, is obviously Pinnock's got a bitch of a fixtures in game weeks 4 and 5, and do you want to play him in that? So, whereas I assume with Lewis, you would play him in game week 4 if you think he's going to start. I just think with Rico Lewis, go back one of the questions of, how would I get Haaland? Well, one way might be doing that is Rico Lewis. Because I think, like, what's the worst case here if I miss him and he is generally going to be first choice very often for City? I buy him at 4.7, 4.8, something like that. That's how it feels, and it's not definite that I'm not going to start him, but it feels like he's sitting in there at the moment. But I don't think I will keep him. It feels like he's a transfer just waiting to happen, and I don't think these next 4 fixtures are strong enough for me to feel like that's right. And the fact that those next 4 fixtures are also quite difficult, rather than it being the fixtures between, say, 7 to 10, I feel more likely that it will just change again. So I'm a little put off by that. So the safer play, I think, is to say Pinnock. We discussed yesterday, Dan, about I really like the long-term Brentford and Brighton rotation. And I had a little look myself overnight at things like Pinnock and Dunk. I'm probably not going to go down that route. But the conclusion I came to, why, is because I'd actually play Pinnock so regularly. I'd just be playing Dunk in like 4, 5 and 9. And this is why Barco would have been so useful off if he'd stayed, because then you combine that, and you could even chance your arm with Van der Berg. But I will say Tom Med, our Brentford correspondent, has advised not to do that on Van der Berg, because he thinks it probably will still be Collins and Pinnock this week. And he thinks there's every chance, therefore, that if you are taking the gamble, Van der Berg will probably come back down below 4.0 before eventually getting in the team. We do think that will happen, but perhaps not in the immediate. Imagine you'd have had that Van der Berg and Barco as rotating 4th and 5th defenders. That could have been gold. Anyway, depends on the rest of your lineup a little bit as well, Dan. The right answer is Lewis, probably. He stole Pinnock, innit? But he does cover a lot of good weeks. Their home fixtures are really good. So if you're comfortable that you've got good cover for game weeks 4 and 5 and stuff, I can completely understand that, mate. Ethan says, also on Wildcard, what do you think of punting Rico Lewis with another 4.5 as backup? Yeah, I hear it. We say backup, but what's to say Lewis isn't just going to come on? You've got a player there who can come on at right back, left back, centre midfield, attacking midfield. Come on anywhere in the pitch. And no, Pep uses his substitutions less than others. But he's changing his tactics, that's quite clear. Maybe he'll change how he does many of his substitutions this year as well. So, yeah, I get it. I would advise, if you're going to do that, I'd go with something that's really stable as the other. But let's take the example that Dan's used, the two players. Now, if you go Lewis and Pinnock, like if Lewis don't play against Brentford next week, what are you looking at? You're looking at Pinnock in the same bloody fixture. Right, that's shite, isn't it? So, do you want to look at going something like that's kind of really stable for a while, like Consa? Fixtures kind of really good up till around about game week 10. But then you're going to pick Lewis over him in a lot of games. Then should you maybe look at something else? Or do you not think Villa's fixtures are good enough that you want to go that way? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on this Rico Lewis thing. I just feel personally for me, he's one that can come back to rather than start with right now. My instinct is it's going to change. That's my instinct. JP says, thoughts on the England squad. How much the squad will be at the World Cup? Oh, blimey, mate. Just finished the last one. I mean, I don't really give a shit at the moment. Right, Interlol, season's just started. Yay, great. Nations League fixtures, like big whoop. I don't really care. I kind of like the squad he picked, and I see a few names in there that perhaps were a bit surprising, like Madueke. Angel Gomez of Lille was a player when me and Clayton looked at alternatives to England's midfield problems in March. We mentioned Angel Gomez then, actually, as a possibility as someone who might make a late run at it. So, I quite like that as a pick. But like whatevs, mate. Like I've not even looked at. I literally looked at the squad for about 2 minutes. Well, that's all right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. James Wright says, hi James. Quick thoughts on Spurs Europa draw. Yeah. All right. Not too bad. Away games from pot 3 and 4 that we got a pretty challenging. Galatasaray and Hoffenheim. Would have liked one that was a little bit easier there, particularly one that would have had less travel than Galatasaray. But we can't complain too much. We've not been done over too badly from the travel perspective there. Rangers was first game out, wasn't it? And love it. I'm definitely up there, and as long as it's not match day 1, I'll be there. Match day 1, my wife's away for a few days. There's no way I'd be able to go. But yeah, I guess I haven't got it confirmed, but I guess Rangers game is going to be at Hampden Park. When would I ever have the opportunity to see Tottenham play at Hampden Park? It would only be on the miracle of Tottenham reaching a European final and Tottenham having that final at Hampden Park. Like, it seems pretty unlikely. So the opportunity to, although I'd rather go to Ibrox, when would I ever have the opportunity to see Tottenham play at Hampden Park if that's the case? So yeah, just fingers crossed that that's not match day 1. I'd be so gutted. Any of the others, absolutely fine. And yeah, I'll be there. I'll look into Hoffenheim as well. I did look into Hoffenheim a couple of weeks ago. It looks like one of the more awkward ones in Germany to get to. It's not really near a major hub. I'm pretty sure I did look, and it was kind of anticipated sort of 7-8 hours train job and stuff. Which I would have been coached 7 hours to Newcastle if I decided that route this weekend. So I'll have a look at Hoffenheim. As far as I haven't investigated yet, but I'll have a look at it. Home games, little disappointing. Like Roma's a great fixture to have. I did want Fenerbahce at home. I'm not going to lie about that. Otherwise, but I guess you could look at it and say, well, there's 3 other home games there that really should be won. That then gives you the platform to at least, I mean, there's no way we should obviously finish in the bottom 12 teams, but at least hit, the playoff stage. That should near enough guarantee that, really. And you're probably looking for 3 wins from the other 5 to kind of shoe in a place for the top 8. But I don't know if it will take as many wins in the Europa League, because there's more the quality is obviously not as high. So for someone to have the consistency to win 6 out of 8, which is what we think will be needed, it's probably not as likely in Europa League as the Champions League. It might be it's only sort of 5 wins and a draw or 2 might be enough to finish in the top 8, and it would be great to finish in the top 8 and skip that extra round. But if it didn't, if you said to me now, Ange's largely going to field a second string in the group stage, and you'll finish in the playoff positions, right, fine. Yeah, draw's fine. I think the biggest one from the league perspective was not too many long journeys, and we've kind of escaped that. We've got Karabag at home. We didn't want that away. So, okay. Who's next? 1877 WWFC says, thoughts on people selling Eze. From what I've seen, only a matter of time before he bags some big points. It's not impossible to start with him on the wildcard. He's not out of contention. The fact that he dropped in price last night has alerted my attention to know that if he scores this weekend, it will just so quickly flip the other way, with Leicester at home, United at home, Everton away the next 3. He basically, I don't think I'm going to start with Eze, but I think if I picked up an injury this week before next week, certainly from the midfielders, he'd be my go-to. Almost, it wouldn't even matter if one of my premiums got injured. I'd be like, that's my go-to. I'm going to Eze, and then we'll restructure, possibly in planning for Haaland. So he's probably going to be just outside for me, but he's not far away. If I had him at this moment, I'd be keeping him. Really would. John Bailey says, hello James, is your wildcard team locked in? If so, what have you gone with? No, it's not locked in. It's close. I will tell you the 15 that it's most likely to be, and without going into too much detail because I want to answer other people's questions. But it's probably going to be Raya, Fabianski, Trent, definitely, Robertson, Porro, Konsa, Fass. Robertson, Porro, Konsa could all definitely change. Fass, I won't bother. I'd picked him up 4.0 earlier in the week. Midfield, I think is pretty set. It's probably going to be Saka, Palmer, Jota, Mbeumo and Rodgers. Up front, Watkins, Isak and Muniz. Muniz might change as well, subject to what I might do with the others. But it's going to end up being quite close to that, is what I'd say. For captaincy this week, Palmer is my plan. I'm looking at between Watkins and Jota for game weeks 4 and 5. Then probably Saka 6, Saka or Palmer 7. And then we'll see how we sit when we get there. That's the plan of what I want to do at the moment. It's not going to massively change from that. I think particularly the Ezri Konsa is one that could definitely change to someone else. Where I could even maybe go, do you know what? I want to play Pinnock and then Brentford home games. I might even take that sort of. It might be that it becomes Nedeljkovic and I just leave the money. I don't really want to go 2 4.0s though. I think if I did that route, it might even be that Robertson would go back to Saliba and I just put my 3 Arsenal in place, because I wouldn't be that against the idea of playing either Fass or Nedeljkovic when Saliba goes to City. Because Fass has got Everton at home, Nedeljkovic got Wolves at home. So from that perspective, could land as quite nice cover, where Saliba might even go into that week last on my bench. So there's a few bits that might still change. I just want to have a look at a couple of different routes. Really importantly for me, what that would then impact towards my transfers around that kind of game week 6 to 8 period. But it's going to be pretty close. I think that midfield that I've named, it's highly likely to be that. I'm not big on Muniz, but I think it's the right one for me from the structure perspective. And people say, João Pedro 0.5. I know Ipswich Forest at home, I can see that as well as everybody else. But I'm not in love with that run from 6 to 11. I want to focus my transfers on other positions. So Muniz does hold for a really sustained period, so I think I'm going to go that way. So it's the defensive players are most likely still to change. That's not locked yet, but yeah, it could easily be that 15 I've just said. I will look at it tonight around about 8 o'clock and make my decisions tonight. Ethan says also, what do you think of Havertz as a pick on Wildcard? Try to cover Saka. I've cut Havertz out. I won't be going with him. That's a definitive decision that I've gone with. Raya's going in for me. I think the ideal Arsenal 3 will be one of Raya, Saka, Havertz, or Raya, Saliba, Saka, Havertz. And the conclusion I've been coming to is if I had to cut myself off of having Havertz, or remember it could be Calafiori, could be Timber. Might be that by the time I had an Arsenal player defensive, might be that Timber looks quite safe. That's a possibility. I decided that what would I rather do? Would I rather cut myself off of all those Arsenal defenders or cut myself off of Havertz? And that's why I haven't ruled out, say, Saliba as yet. But Saka, I want in. I want in for that. That captaincy in game week 6 feels bigger for me than the covering with Mo for 4 and 5, because I think with Jota and Watkins I can be quite competitive against it. That's the plan. So Saka's going in near certainty. Yes, difficult 4-5, but it saves me scrambling game week 6 when I know everyone else will be. And I'm wildcarding in game week 3. A lot of this has got to last me quite a while, so it's a long-term decision on Saka. Once his fixtures get difficult again, sort of roundabouts game week 9, a little bit like what I said with Palmer, could be towards Son, could be towards Foden. I like having the 2 at that value, and I think that's what I'm going to go with. Just as models are predicting less points for Ben White than both Gabriel and Saliba. If price isn't an issue, what do you think? That Ben White had that amazing game against Chelsea last season, which was essentially the difference between White and Gabriel and Saliba last season. And fair play to everyone who had him over that period. And he was a differential for most of the season because, again, last year I think he was a little bit more expensive. I think because of what he did, it was justifiable that he had that little price increase. I couldn't really pick a good reason when money is obviously tighter now. It's not like we've built our squads to have 103 in value. Where it's tighter at the moment, I can't make the case really to pay that extra for Ben White at this moment in time. Scott Alvarez says, for a wild card, is it Salah, Haaland or both? You missed an option there, Scott, and it's called neither, mate. Listen, don't do what I do. I'll play the game my way, and you should all play the game your way. But there's another option there, mate. Were I to have one right now, I'd go the Salah route. Philip Bell says, like and subscribe, people. The best FPL content out there, in my opinion. Thank you, Philip. Isak to Watkins or roll. I have Gordon and Field and Newcastle attacking double up. He's over the top. Yeah, Tottenham at home, Wolves away next 2. Yeah, I wouldn't be in a rush to fix that. But you will feel the urge to go Isak to Watkins next week. I'm fairly confident, almost irrespective of what happens this week, because the most important news ahead of game week 4 is on Jared Brantwaite. And judging by Sean Dyche's comments today, I don't think he's going to be back for then. If you ask me to name my game week 4 captain right now, I mean, look, Haaland clearly best and then Salah. But I think if it was these fixtures, if it was game week 4 fixtures this weekend, even despite what we've seen in the first 2, I would arguably captain Watkins over Jota. So there's definitely going to be an appeal. Would I rush to do that this week when Isak is at home against an opponent that his team has scored 10 goals against in their last 2 home games against? I would probably just be leaving Isak there. It's close enough to think that the role is better. Similarly, Anthony Gordon had a huge haul in that same fixture last season as well. So leave yourself be, mate. You're not in a crisis situation or anything. Go with them this week. See where you land afterwards. And I'm still keeping Isak as part of my wild card. I hope that kind of speaks volumes at the moment. James Wright says, has the goalkeeper merry-go-round clarified a standout 4.5 million, or are we better off just sucking it up and going with Raya / another premium? Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I've decided. By the way, for those putting questions in, there's no chance for those at the end that I'm going to get to you. Absolutely none. This isn't the deadline stream. I'm not going to rush through it. 4.5 keepers. I think the one that I looked at the most, and I'm highly likely to go around the Raya route. The one I looked at the most was Areola. But you wildcard into like Man City at home, so I couldn't shake that feeling. It's like, you just psychologically want to start on the right foot, don't you? Once that's out of the way, I think that's pretty good for a sustained period. Flecken has said home fixtures really good, away fixtures not so good. I think Verbruggen will be Brentford's number one, and I think Verbruggen will play tomorrow. There is a brilliant rotation there with Flecken and Verbruggen. Now, Lewis said he will have a definitive number one with Brighton. Now, if that's Jason Steele, I'm sorry, but I don't think it will be. I think Flecken and Verbruggen's quite interesting. I'm going to go down the Raya route. I'm going to pay that a little bit extra. It also means that I've got an Arsenal defensive in place for that swing of fixtures we're all aware of in game week 6, and I don't want to be fighting for that. If I've got the luxury where I can add a second and that's what I want to do, great. I don't want to be getting there and having none. What do I do here? So Raya's going in for me. Again, longer term decision making here. My view on Raya has changed massively since my view in pre-season, because I think the biggest thing on the BPS changes is the requirement for goalkeepers to keep clean sheets to be hitting bonus is quite clear. And he's the goalkeeper at the best defence in the league. That's not in question for me. They also don't have the offensive players of Trent, Robertson, maybe Vardiol, maybe Lewis. So quite happy to go Raya at the moment while it settles down and we get clarity who's going to play left back. Like I said, in a few weeks, might be I want to go to Timber. So yeah, I'm going to go to Raya route. I think at the 4.5s, Areola I like long term. Really look at that Flecken and Verbruggen rotation. I think he's pretty good if people want to look at it. Not so high on Dean Henderson with some changes to obviously Palace's backline recently. I think that needs monitoring. One to watch might be, and it might sound silly at this moment, Aaron Ramsdale at Southampton is one to watch. No clarity if he's going to play tomorrow though at the moment. I would suggest by Russell Martin's comments today that he probably will. Patrick McCarthy says, hi James, Isak or Havertz on a wild card, not going Saka. I'm going Isak, and if I'd not gone Saka it still would have been Isak. That wouldn't have changed that for me. So I'd rather start with the Isak, the higher point, and if we need to come down, we'll come down. It's also a little bit close to Haaland for those of us who have lost their mind. Tim Johnson says, hi mate, keep Porro this week. We'll then have free transfers next game week. Nice. Or downgrade now to 4.5 to free up cash. If so, which 4.5? Thinking Consa. If you don't know the answer to that at this moment, Tim, just go with Pedro. We had a big debate with Clayton this morning on our Patreon pod about starting Porro or Consa this week, which is quite interesting. A split opinion on that, and yet neither of us were pretty comfortable. Neither of us were particularly comfortable with the decisions that we'd probably make. So I get it. But again, a little bit like the one that was being asked earlier, we'd say Watkins to Isak to Watkins. Like, it's close enough there. A week worth of more information feels better. I don't think it's going to... The one solace to me is I keep looking at the team as it would stand with, say, Trent, Robertson, Porro as a back three. Like, it looks quite exciting, but I do think we're just not getting a lot this week. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of clean sheets this week, actually. So I'd hold fire. David Fawn says, who do you captain out of Haaland, Salah, Trent and Isak? Started strong, triple captain Haaland. Tempted to go against Haaland. He's away against a relatively tough side and aggressive centre-back, Mavropanos. From what you've got there, in those choices, Haaland without a doubt. I think the two best competitive this week to Haaland are Palmer and Saka. My homie says, hi James, thoughts on why Arsenal might be interested in Sterling. I can think Coman might be a better choice. The deal will offer itself to Arsenal. They have the cards here if they do want the player, because Chelsea are obviously desperate to move it on. So it might be that it becomes a really good deal for Arsenal. You could say that they're a little bit light of natural cover for Bukayo Saka. And in the case of Raheem Sterling, who can obviously play left or right, in the case of him potentially covering for, say, Saka on the right-hand side, because I don't think there's anything else in the squad that's comfortable other than Nelson, and Arsenal probably want an upgrade on that. That they might look at it as a deal that wins for everyone, and Sterling will be desperate to go to Arsenal as an example if that's happening, because he'll play more at Arsenal. He's going to at Chelsea. I mean, that's pretty clear. Chelsea are just going to leave him out of the squad, so I feel sorry for him actually. I do, as in Sterling. Peter Widmark says, would you go with both Salah and Haaland on Wildcard? I think that's been answered. Wally says, is Mbeumo now high on the list to have in our teams now Tony is gone? Had to fit, but good differential going forward. Yeah, I'm probably going to start with Mbeumo. Good fixture this week. I'm of the thought process at the moment to bench him in 4 and 5 and play Rodgers in those 2 fixtures when he plays Everton and Wolves. I think, and you can tell it almost with some of the questions here and some of my answers I've been given, real focus for Arsenal game week 6, Man City game week 7, then a couple of others when sort of like Chelsea's fixtures get tough in 8, then Arsenal's get tougher again in game week 9, and so does Liverpool's. So looking at that period, it does feel like you might be moving around a few premium parts, and I think a part of that is everyone might just miss Brian Mbeumo's brilliant run that starts in game week 6. It starts in game week 6 and it lasts for a really prolonged period, and it's outstanding, and that's mainly why I want to go with him now. Had Tony declared that he was going to stay, remember the Saudi transfer window is open till Monday, I probably would have looked at an alternative, but I think I want to go with Mbeumo and having him in place now. Rodgers, really nice cover for Villa's 2 outstanding fixtures, 4-5. It just feels right for me, and I'm saving me again a transfer further down the line that could be a difference maker to wanting to do things later on when these next fixture swings come. So obviously, look, like everyone, you pick a wildcard team, you want to get a green arrow straight away. But here's the thing, right? I'm ranked 122k. A green arrow this week for me is unlikely. I'm looking for a little bit of stability over these next few weeks. Position me nicely to compete against those later on. I'm looking for like a stable period here, and me to be in position that I don't need to sweat about things like Mbeumo and Saka come game week 6. That they're in place for me. That's the thought process at the moment. So yeah, I'm quite high on the idea of Mbeumo, but if you're already sitting there with like treble Arsenal and you're carrying through and you don't intend to wildcard over that period, then I'd probably look at game week 6 instead, subject to what you've got. Greg Williams says, hi James, and Kunku to Mbeumo or Eze? that one's not quite so easy, because obviously I don't know what you've got in the rest of your squad, and I think if it's a case of you want the player to play every week for you for the foreseeable, it's arguably Eze first under that circumstance. So it might depend what the makeup your rest of your squad is. I've obviously gone down the Mbeumo route, so I'm gonna back my guy there. But yeah, in your scenario, subject to what you've got as cover, might be Eze first. I'm very interested in Eze. Honestly, if I held it, would not be selling. Dermot Whelan says, hi James, on wildcard this week, is Visser a decent option? Would I be better trying to force in Mbeumo, considering he'll more than likely have pens now with Tony leaving? This is quite an interesting one. One of my thoughts with him is if Muniz is really kind of not doing it great, then I could even look at adding Visser to Mbeumo in game week 6. That one didn't feel as right to me to use as a rotation, because it didn't get me. I'll go Visser. It didn't change anything for me value wise. Right? Could I have gone Eze instead? Yeah, but then did I want to wildcard into Eze then to play Chelsea away this week? I looked at these things. Visser wasn't far away from my thinking, but he's not going in at the moment. He's one that I'll have my radar on for what I see over the next few weeks. I'll obviously get to see Brentford at Tottenham in game week 5 as well, and probably draw some conclusions off that. There is a little bit of a danger with a front 2 that he may not play on occasion, I feel, when they play away from home. But it does look like from the Liverpool game that will be the favoured 2 if they play with this more hybrid system that they do when Keane Lewis Potter plays. I think Sade will come back into the team tomorrow. Mbeumo will go back to the right. Visser will hold that central role. So Johan Visser, I really wanted to go as a punt for me on my bench boost in game week 1, and Tom Med really put me off in correspondent week. Tom's going to be part of our content this week on Clash to Correspondence on Tuesday. Let's see if he's changed his mind. But I probably wouldn't be going Visser at this moment personally. Next up is Jerry W. Hello, James. For wildcard as 6, would you prioritise getting Villa from 3 to 6 or Brighton for 4 to 5? I have one free transfer right now. If I do the first one, it's Bruno to Bailey. Second one means I roll into game week 4 with 2 free transfers. Prioritised Villa first because Brighton are going to Arsenal this week. So in terms of prioritised, that feels, you're prioritising 3 to 6 or just 4 to 5. Well, one's over 4 fixtures and one over 2. So, considering it's early in the season, it feels like the Villa play is better here. Anand says, hey James, if one was wildcarding, what are the 2 best 4.5s? I've covered, so I'm going to skip that. Yahya says, I own Salah, Saka, Isak, but I just bought Watkins for the fixtures and I'm planning to captain him. Care to talk me out of it? There's probably 6 or 7 I would have as a better option for Ollie Watkins this week. I think based on what I saw of Leicester against my team in game week 1, we can probably expect them to be quite negative. Spacing behind might be quite difficult to find. He clearly is building his fitness up. So he wouldn't be near the top of my list for this week. But, if you don't have attacking Arsenal or attacking Chelsea, I can certainly see the temptation of that. I'm not going to talk you out of it. If that's who you believe is the best choice, then go for it. I was just going to check and see if we'd had any official Aston Villa team news come through as yet. Not as far as I can see at this moment. How are we doing for time? We'll do 15 more minutes. Stavros says... no, not Stavros. We're going to... Jerry's... Did it? Jerry? Yahya. That's what we've just done. Sorry, Jerry. For second part, considering Salah and Isak and 1.5 to Salah and João Pedro. No, it's like a desperation for Salah, and it's not this week, mate. Stavros says, regards from Cyprus, James. Thoughts on Gordon and Son to Mbeumo and Palmer. Have 8 attacker. João Pedro that can rotate with Mbeumo. Sounds like you got a plan, mate, and I don't mind that at all. Take Sonny's points and run, probably, mate. Andrew Gronin says, can't choose between playing Robinson and Hall. Secure minutes on the road versus insecure minutes at home. Low clean sheets odds. Similarly attacking, playing equally weak opponents. I see what you did there, Andrew. So you know what the answer is then, don't you? I'm just going to blank you for taking the piss out of me. I generally would go Robinson. It's the one that definitely plays. It's close enough that I would just do that, mate. Haride says, I have Munoz and Henderson as part of my defence. Would you sell Munoz to Konsa for a -4? Here's an easy one for you that regular listeners will know. Don't take -4s for defenders. Unless you're doing it for something like Trent, who's got an amazing fixture. It's just going to be a no every single time. Unless it's one where you have a player who is injured and you're making a long-term decision. So, no, you've got a fit player there who is offensive. Selling him for a -4? Nah. What's the best case scenario for you here? Munoz gets a 1 point and Konsa gets a 6 and you're 1 point up. Okay, I realise the best case scenario is Konsa getting a 15-pointer. But realistically, you're taking a -4 to win, 1 point? It's more likely you don't make any profit, mate. No. 1877 says, WWFC, thoughts with Wolves sticking with a back 4. New signing Andre likely to be the 6. Dropping between the centre-backs. Reckon we may be in for a relegation fight. Question, personally, I don't as others expect. I'm concerned for Wolves if they get beat tomorrow. Because you see Newcastle, Villa, Liverpool afterwards, and then Man City and Brighton a couple after that as well. And the other game that I've missed out there is an away game at Brentford, and you start thinking, might be playing catch up here. That's the concern. I think Gary O'Neill needs to lift his own mood. He looks like a man who's quite despondent at the moment. I think find some energy, and his team will find some energy. I think he's done a really good job so far. I think if the team stays fit, should be absolutely fine, irrespective of any ideas that it might move back to a back 3. I think it probably does stay to a back 4 with this Andre signing. I think Semedo coming back in the team will help. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Semedo play right-sided centre-back for a few games, and perhaps some of these tougher ones. And then when the fixtures get better, it then goes back to a back 4. I think that's a possibility. I mean, possibly looking at more of a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-2-3-1, like you said, with Andre dropping in, and it doesn't restrict Lamina or João Gomez so much. But I think that takes away something from what he wanted to do offensively. But I think his own comments on Wednesday night said that the team can't do what he wants it to do yet. So got to be realistic because this league is a little bit brutal, and the importance for Wolves in the immediate is just getting results any way they can. I think over to be honest till November basically, and I hope you come out the right side, and then I'm sure it will be fine. Yeah, I don't have huge concerns about Wolves. There are some alarm bells defensively, I think, from an experience and leadership perspective, but I think it will be all right in time. MJ says, hi James, Jota to Palmer for a hit will block me for Salah next week and already own Haaland. I feel like this is one of those where you kind of answered your own question, isn't it? You want to get Palmer for a hit and it blocks you off the player that you probably really want next week. Yeah, I'd be sitting tight, mate. CJ Stuck07 says, I've not made a transfer yet this season. Should I sell Solanke to Watkins this week or hold until our wildcard in game week 4? I have a good enough bench to cover this week. So this is like the scenario I had with Muniz last week. This is exactly how I landed. So I knew I was going to wildcard in 3. Am I better off having the power of the transfer afterwards? The result would suggest that I should have waited. However, Rodrigo Muniz had 7 shots last weekend, and I feel a little bit unfortunate. And Ollie Watkins has the same opponent this weekend. I think with a player like that has powerful return potential, I would be making the transfer and bringing him in. John Allen, I spoke through the wild card, so I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you for your question. Emmanuel Topo says, is it worth the risk to sell Haaland for Watkins and get the potential price rise? Then Salah next week for the home games. I still think Isak has a double pointer in him, especially against you guys. Again, feel like we're answering our own questions here. Can this not wait a week? No? God, I don't want to sell Haaland for Brentford at home. Yeah, I get it. But more information next week. Sounds better. Brunton says, hi James, thanks for the stream. Standard template-ish team. Struggling with starting just 2 out of Smith Rowe, Rodgers and Muniz. Which 2 scored the most in your opinion? Tough. Just think. I'd definitely play Muniz, I think, from the fray because that's the out-and-out forward. Rodgers and Smith Rowe's close. The reason it's close is I think Villa win and I don't think Fulham win. But I also accept that Smith Rowe has given us proof, although we haven't seen much of it over the last couple of years, but proof of his finishing ability at the top end of the pitch. With Rodgers so far, he's been unlucky, yes, certainly. But how often is he going to get the returns? You went Smith Rowe and it's Ipswich away and you're not going to play him. There might be a psychological on that. It's also worth saying to caveat, Rodgers obviously 90 minutes at the moment, it looks like. Certainly from the first 2, and we kind of know that Smith Rowe won't be that, and we also know Muniz won't be that, because Jimenez will come on for him at some point. I think I'd go to, despite thinking Villa win and Fulham don't, I'd arguably go to 2 Fulham players. Just about, I think. Tim Johnson says, second from me, Brereton Diaz, should I be worried? If he doesn't return this week, he may be on the chopping block. It's got Man United next week, mate. Yeah, he could be on the chopping block. I think what you want is change from Southampton, which hopefully their Carabao Cup win will inspire a bit. Once you get beyond this week, it's Man United at home and Ipswich at home, and I'd probably want to get through them too before I made a decision. But yeah, last game week 1 was encouraging. Last week was very concerning for them. Oni Dozy says, hi James, with Trippier now retiring, Walker not picked in the England squad. Can you predict the England lineup for the 2026 World Cup? Pickford, Trent, Stones, Gay, left back. Left back. Jeez. Left. It's going to be someone inverted. Ben White from left back. No, it wouldn't be that with Trent at right back. I know it'd be a defensive left. Levi Colwell at left back. Lewis, I can hear you. Newcastle fans, I can hear you. Levi Colwell at left back to allow Trent to push on. Midfield. It's not going to be hugely different, is it? Rice, Foden, Bellingham. Saka on the right. Solanke up front. And Mikey Moore on the left. Josh Tellin says, afternoon James, hope you're well, no questions here, I like the stream and all the best for the game week. Thank you Josh. Smash a like people, it's hugely appreciated. Bertica says, play Bruno against Liverpool, bench and start Rodgers, mate, cheers for everything. play Bruno. I want to bench a player like that, especially at home as well. Mojo says, hi James, hope you're doing well. Would you bench Smith Rowe or Muniz? I would play the forward as just previously covered. Simon Bibby, my Newcastle correspondent, is in. He says, hi James, take me back to my pre-season optimism, please. Hopefully Dr. Tottenham is making house calls this weekend. We will make our call. I'm very disappointed, Simon, that neither Solanke or Richarlison are fixed. I think I genuinely would have fancied it. Something's not right, and I think you know it. Doesn't mean you can't beat us. Definitely does. You would rightly be favourites at the weekend, but something is not right. And Newcastle fans keep telling me something is not right. And I hear that. I hear that. Cora Hope says, hi James, no Haaland team. Would you take a -4 to go Doku to Parma? I'd take a -8 to get rid of Doku, mate. Would involve downgrading Solanke to a 6.5 or lower striker. So we're selling Solanke as part of this as well. Yeah. Probably a yes from me. Greg Frost says, hi James, 2 million in the bank. Jota Diaz, Sun captain, Ahmad Gordon, Isak Havertz. Role or any recommendations? Yeah, don't captain Sun, mate. 2 million in the bank. How many frays? I'm going to guess 1. Jota Diaz, Sun captain, Ahmad. Who's your other midfielder? I don't think Ahmad starts. You've got another midfielder, like who is it? Maybe it's just a 4.5 shit one. Okay. Personally, off that, Sun to Parma, mate. Sun to Parma and Ahmad to Leon Bailey. Give you some Villa coverage as well. There you go. JF says, hi James, on my wildcard this week, the best team is no Haaland, isn't it? But why is it so terrifying? Because you see how terrifying it is. And you know that he's going to do things like last week. I have to say, the team I'm putting together doesn't feel quite as strong as I wanted it to. But I do think he's well positioned to be competitive against him. Truthfully, I think the answer to that is yes, but I wouldn't tell anyone you've got to sell him or anything like that. Like, he's going to be the highest scoring player in the game. He's going to have captaincy weeks to return like they did last week. Like, I get it. It's not that I don't want him. Matt Woolley says, what are your feelings on the new Champions League, Europa League format, and any away Spurs trips you're looking forward to? Rangers, yeah. As I said, I'll have a second look at Hoffenheim, probably Ferencváros as well. Very unlikely I would go to Galatasaray, but it does depend when it is as well. Any away game match day one, I wouldn't be able to go to. So yeah, in terms of the format, it's new, it's different. Let's see. Certainly the Champions League group stage had got to the point where a number of years people have been listening to me a while know. Every year it's like, okay, the draw's been made, great. We can all pick 13 of the 16 teams will go through. And it feels different now. I quite like that. Stephen Carr says, hello, James. Hope you're well. Who would you play over Kulu or Rodgers? I mean, it's difficult to foresee Kulusevski not playing now this weekend. But it could just be, Sarr comes back into him, Johnson and Odebear or Werner on the wings. Yeah, it could be. But I'd want Kulusevski to play, even if that meant taking Johnson out of the team. Kulusevski should play. I think Rodgers, though, mate. I think Rodgers. D-Taff says, hi James, hope you're well. Non-FPL question. Knowing the Rico is one of the few grounds you've not been to, are you pleased with the League Cup draw? You can see the smile all over my face, mate. Will you be attending the tie? I was telling the wife, who was obviously watching the draw, and it was a very unique and weird one, because obviously the domestic cup draw is very different to the European. It's 1v1, and obviously Coventry came out, and I knew before even Tottenham come out that that's who we'd got, obviously. And I'm telling the miss, I'm like, definitely going to that, babes. 18th of September. That's a certainty. She's like, you don't even know you got them. I'm like, watch. Oh, how did you know that? And I'm like, do I need to explain this to you? This is as complicated as a UEFA draw. But I know it's us. Yeah, well pleased. And ironically, Wickham was the one out before. And I was like, well, that'll do. That's not far either. I'd have some of that as well. I have been to Wickham before, actually. But Coventry and Sheffield Wednesday are the two I'm always looking out for. They're probably the two biggest ones in this country I've not done. So yeah, absolutely delighted to get that one. Yeah, that's see you there. Yeah, really looking forward to that. Until we lose, probably. Maximo says Haaland and Rodgers or Watkins and KDB Son. Watkins and Saka, mate. You might already have Saka, so I'll answer it legitimately then. Watkins and KDB. FPL MK says, hi James, what would your wildcard front 8 look like this week if you were on wildcard? I think I've covered that, mate. Ruben Villa says, is the best captain Mbeumo? Not in my opinion. Perdo's Pen says, hi James, what trio do you prefer? Saka, Vardy, Greaves, Eze, Havertz, Lewis. I don't mind the Greaves shout. You don't mind the Vardy shout. The influence there is the Saka captaincy in game week 6 swings that for me, because that's almost an effective extra player for one game week there. Gives you like a 7 versus 6 if you think of it that way. But if Lewis stays in the City team, that trio is better. So it'll come down to Lewis. As I've said, I'm not confident in that personally. JBP says, it's the season of the punt, play it your way and enjoy. That's quite correct. I'm going to take 3 more on, as I can see I've done an hour now. Joe Pedden says, which one would you bench between Rodgers, Smith-Rowe, Muniz, Semenyo? Thanks, mate. It's probably Rodgers, reluctantly. Zvonimir Boban says, hey James, Raya and Gabriel started great for me, but on wildcard and think they'll concede in the next 3. Stupid to go without both for now. No, I wouldn't call it stupid or not. You're attacking the fixtures. It could be quite a smart play. But again, just look ahead at 6 and 7, and yeah, you're going to want one back, aren't you? So that's why I'm choosing to go with 1 now. And FPL Cockney Red says, hi James, wildcard this week too. Do you prefer Saka and Smith-Rowe or Mbeumo and Eze? Other midfielders are Palmer, Salah and Rodgers, and have Pedro as 8th attacker. With Havertz and Watkins up front. Again, a little bit like the one I just answered. You know, what's the effect of that to game week 6 for you on captaincy? That's all that needs a second glance. You might think Mbeumo home to West Ham. I don't know. You might think Havertz is fine for game week 6 home to Leicester. Watkins way to Ipswich possibly. There's alternatives, sure. But if the intention would be Saka in 6, that gives it the edge. Otherwise, I prefer the other combination, is the honest truth. But from a structure perspective, I prefer the Saka route. I think that's important to me. You have got Palmer, so you're in and around that value. You don't have to have it. But I look at things of the possibility of being able to go like Saka and Palmer to Son and De Bruyne or Foden. That's the sort of thing I'm maybe looking at. And obviously, if you only got 1 there, and obviously if you decide, right, there's a clear 1, I'm not interested in the others, you can drop it down. It feels better to start there than to fight to get back there, particularly when you and I might both be in a fight to get Erling Haaland at one stage as well. Thanks very much to all those who submitted questions. There is a ton of you that I've not got to, so apologies. I hope the stream helped answer your question. If I've not answered it, feel free to tag me at Planet FPL Pod on Twitter, not in my DMs. Tag me on Twitter and I'll quote tweet your question and I will answer it, and everybody can see it later today if that's what you wish to do. Otherwise, smash a like, hit the sub button. Just a brief plug before we finish. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Additional podcasts from Intermediate Plus tier every week. No ads from Basic. Access to Slack from Basic Plus. Additional advanced tier video content each weekday as well. Do it because you want the additional content or because you want to support the show. Next week's content, I can tell you, will be a game week review on Monday, as long as I make it back from Newcastle, which isn't guaranteed with the strikes that are going on, but I'm going to try my best. Tuesday, Clash of Correspondences, Manchester City versus Brentford with Johnny Pringle and Tom Med. Wednesday, the Clayton and James show. I was going to say we'll be covering something specific on that, but I don't actually know that. Thursday, Clash of Correspondence as well. Aston Villa versus Everton with Lee Jackson and Sean Norton, and Ash James will be available for you next Friday as well. That's it, I think. Have a great weekend. I hope your arrows are green. For those on YouTube, deadline stream live 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. For the benefit of those in the audio, cue music, please, man child.